Welcome, friends and listeners, Brandon Inquisitors. I'm Jake.
I'm Jax. We're your world hopping hosts. Join us as we dive into the Coppermind.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to the pod. This is super exciting for us.
Yep.
We've been talking about starting a pod about the Cosmere for over a year at least.
Yeah, it's been a minute now.
Yeah, I actually got introduced into the Cosmere by Jax here. I was looking for books to read, and he recommended Mistborn, and he was like, it's got a crazy magic system. This was like maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And he was just like, you're going to love it. And I was like, okay. And ever since then, just like kept reading it. I think the first time through
He was a little skeptical at first because I was not great at explaining the magic system before.
He was like, they swallow metal and then like they burn it in their tummies. And I was like, okay.
But he trusted me enough.
I trusted him enough. I knew he had good book sense. So, yeah, I think the first time I read through the Cosmere, I didn't even know that it was the Cosmere.
Yeah.
I just knew I liked Brandon Sanderson. Oh, here's more Brandon Sanderson books. I'm going to read through those. And then eventually I finished the second era of Mistborn. And the last book in that series is like heavy Cosmere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went to you and I was like, dude, Brandon fell off.
Lost the plot.
I was like, he brought in aliens at the end just for the heck of it. I was so like not in it. So, but Jax, how did you get into the Cosmere?
I honestly can't remember what my first introduction into the Cosmere was. I know the first book I read in the Cosmere was The Mistborn, but I can't remember how I got to that point. I'd read a little bit of Brandon Sanderson in my later teens. I read his the Reckoner series.
Oh yeah,
which
good series.
Isn't in the Cosmere. But at that point I knew that I liked Brandon Sanderson, and so I just ended up stumbling across some of his other books. I don't know who recommended it to me. I can't remember, when it started, but I just started reading, and then as I was reading, just realizing like that the Cosmere was a thing, and going through and getting a lot of that backstory was way fun for me. So I've read through the Cosmere
three
or four times. Yeah,
I think I'm 3. Well, I'm 2.5 because my first read through, I didn't know it was the Cosmere, and I didn't read all the Cosmere books.
Right.
So I like my first read through, I just read kind of the popular ones, and then you would let me know that, hey, this is a thing. I think it was when the like Roman Empire meme was going around, like this is our Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And you were like, this is my Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And so you explained it, and I was like, that's crazy cool. I have to reread all these books now.
Yes.
And so I reread them, and then I reread them again. And now we're going to be rereading them again, but with a fine-tooth comb.
Yes, a lot more intentionality, because we both work. We're both construction workers, and so we both work full time and have the opportunity to listen a lot while we're at work. So that's a lot of how we've gotten through the Cosmere is audiobooks.
That's the only way I don't think until now I've physically read any of these books.
I don't know that I have either. I think this will be my first time reading any of them, except for maybe Mistborn. I feel like maybe the first time I read Mistborn, I did it on paperback. But other than that, I've always listened. On that note, just so everybody knows, the pronunciations that we use in this podcast will be the Michael Kramer pronunciations.
Yeah, or whoever read the audiobook.
Yes.
Because that's all we've ever known. Yep. And we know some of those are up for debate.
Yes, I actually know that Brandon has come out and negated or like said that some of Michael Kramer's pronunciations are wrong.
Yeah.
We're not going to dive deep enough into like trying to figure out how Brandon pronounces everything. So just so you guys are aware, our pronunciations will be the Michael Kramer or the audiobook pronunciations.
And along with that, for those of you who have not read through the Cosmere, this podcast is going to be very spoiler heavy.
Yeah.
It is going to be us connecting this book to the end of that book, to the beginning of that book, to, oh, but this character dies, but this character doesn't. It's going to be all on the table. We're not going to be hiding anything.
Yeah, even in the books that we are reading, we will be referencing the end of that book near the beginning as we're tying things in. So it's
Just
not going to be a good, like, if this is your first time, this isn't necessarily a read along podcast.
yeah, yeah,
This is a deep dive into the nuances of the podcast, what Brandon's done in his world building, and how everything ties
yeah.
together.
And that's just necessary because the way we want this podcast to work is also very theory heavy.
Yeah.
Is as we're reading and as we're discussing, we're going to have theories pop up. And that's when we're mostly going to be diving into the Coppermind, is to find anything that supports those theories. And we might be jumping to, I don't know, the end of Wind and Truth because it supports this theory that we're talking about now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a million examples I could throw out off the top of my head of different books that we can tie into different theories, and we're excited to get into all that, but I'm gonna save that for later episodes.
Yeah. So this episode here is just our episode 0. We're just introducing you to the podcast, to what we're doing here. Now that being said, we kind of want to talk about how we're going to structure the podcast and kind of our schedule for it. So when we jump into a book, we're probably going to decide when we start the book how many chapters to cover an episode.
Yeah.
So for Elantris, we're most likely doing 3 chapters because there's 3 POVs and it's always in order. So we'll get a Raoden chapter, a Sereni chapter, and then a Hrathen chapter.
Yeah. And Elantris will be our first book that we're diving into. We'll be getting into Elantris first. After that, we're most likely going to move on to Mistborn. But again, once we get to Mistborn, we'll decide how many chapters. We'll be announcing that at the beginning of the book. So it's not going to be uneven throughout the whole Cosmere, but we'll make sure to let everybody know what that schedule is.
Yeah, and we'll just go through those chapters and bring up what we found, what we deep dived. I know for the first couple chapters in Elantris, I probably went overboard and I deep dove every single line because I thought it might have something to do with the Cosmere or something. And yeah, so we'll be doing episode a week, and we're most likely going to be releasing those every Monday. So just to start your work week, you can pop us in your ears or watch us on YouTube and yeah, hear about the Cosmere.
Yeah. This is really the podcast that Jake and I were looking for. Because we were, we'd read through the Cosmere a couple times. We were really looking for something that we could continue to listen to Cosmere content without going back through and listening to the whole series again, because we'd already done that a couple times. So there's a couple other podcasts out there we know, but we never found one that really stuck for us. And so we just decided that it was just time for us to create it ourselves.
Yeah. So that is the podcast. That's what we're going to be doing. Every single week at the end of the podcast, we're going to be doing a segment called Cosmere Question of the Week. This is going to be a question submitted by you guys to me and Jax. It could be any theories you have, just any questions in general on the Cosmere, where we will then answer your question and possibly come up with a theory about it if that's what it entertains.
Yep. Answer your question to the best of our knowledge, but we'll also our podcast is called Into the Coppermind, and a big reason for that is we use the coppermind.net a lot. Brandon Sanderson's wiki. And so we'll be, researching theories inside there, pulling different supporting elements from the Coppermind, from our knowledge as we've read through the Cosmere so many different times. We'll be pulling knowledge from there to answer you guys' questions.
So if you guys would like to submit a question for me and Jax to answer, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment below on this video. Or if you're an audio listener, you can leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and we will see those and get around to it. Jax, where can they find us elsewhere?
We're also on Instagram and TikTok. We post short form content over there. So anywhere that you guys consume your content, you can probably find us. And our handle is Into the Coppermind.
Yep, just at Into the Coppermind, no spaces. I'm sure if you just typed in Coppermind, we'd probably pop up.
We'll be there.
Yeah, that's all we have for this episode. And Join us next time as we dive into the Coppermind.